tukaba tugiye kubagezaho ikiganiro Perezida wa Repubulika agirana n'abanyamakuru.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. I think if it's okay with you, we can get started right away on the questions. So the first question we will take is from Rwanda Focus, Shaka Kanuma.
I'm Shaka Kanuma of the Rwanda Focus. Thank you, Mr. President. My question focuses on the ICC. Mr. President, your position has always been clear, even before the current troubles or fiascos involving the International Criminal Court, that it actually does not work very much for the interests of Africa. Now, I think, Mr. President, your opinion again is called for, especially in light of what has been going on in Ethiopia, with all the disputes, people talking about the court currently being rejected by most of the African heads of state because it appears to be really working for other interests. Others saying, no, the court should actually be in place out of a sense that perhaps there is some issues of justice it can address. Now, obviously, there's two dichotomies on this one. And being one of the prominent leaders on the issue, Mr. President, I think it would call for more of your opinions, more of your clarifications, or even any new issues that might have come up, especially in the discussions in Addis Ababa. Thank you. Mr. President, actually, it's not a direct. It's not a question. It's your opinions. Yes, exactly.
Well, you at least you've talked about a bit of background to that. The ICC, our position, at least Rwanda's position for a long time, and indeed it's good for at least that for you, you've been able to tell the difference, because some people think we hold the position you hold because of Kenya. No. I think our reaction to the Kenya situation has more to do with the position we have held over a long time. So it is not about Kenya, it's about ICC. And Kenya is a good example of the problems we have had with ICC for a long time. I remember I expressed this position more than right at the inception of ICC, in actual fact. I told people of an opportunity I had when issues to do with ICC were being discussed, the formation of that. And I did tell people that I thought this was just another institution, an international institution, that is going to be abused. And at the end of the day, the victims are the Africans or the weak countries or countries that are still struggling in their development. This was the view I had about 10 years ago when this was coming up, or slightly more than that. And today I'm able to ask people, I say, was I wrong? Because what I see today just tells the story I was talking about more than 10 years ago. Nothing has happened that has made me or has convinced me to change my mind about it. So every other year that passes, I think I'm convinced I was even right, or others who held the similar view were right. You see, it relates to another problem, as you know, we have had also discussed at the AU, and which is now at the UN General Assembly, was also discussed. So the matter is with the UN. And this was something to do with what was called universal jurisdiction. Universal jurisdiction meaning we already have cases here where some of our people, for all kinds of reasons, some lower courts of some countries or just a single judge decide to say, I'm going to indict Minister so-and-so, General so-and-so, and even when you look at the background, the issues are debatable or questionable. And most of it really political. Because if you look at the nature of the cases that were affecting us in France or in Spain, they are mainly of a political nature, and they were instigated or initiated by some local judges somewhere. Now, and the question even relating to this was, if you call it universal jurisdiction, the meaning even of that is that it will apply equally everywhere. So which means if this can happen with judges in Spain or France or anywhere, it should happen with judges in Rwanda, in the East African countries or any other place. But the practice is not true. It doesn't apply like that. It only applies and is respected only in some places and not in others. Even at the international level, therefore, it doesn't apply equally. So that's the problem. So how does it become universal jurisdiction? So on matters of ICC, therefore, what we are talking about is this question where some people or this world is divided into categories. There are people who have the power to use international justice or international law to judge others, and it does not apply to them. So in fact, you find in most places then it is used either to against people whom they think, do not serve their interests or who are said to disrespect them, or, even to determine leaders of countries who should be the leader of this country or the other one. If they don't want him, there is a case, and then use this. But it happens only in one direction. It doesn't happen in another. So how can we have a world of this kind of order? Or that, for that matter, why should we accept it? Why should we accept that there is a world that is like this, that it treats especially those of us, meaning Africans, like it does? Of course, there are all kinds of arguments I hear out there. It's like, but you see, African leaders, and some of them really, doing wrong things and so on. But that's not the issue. The issue is not whether some people are doing wrong things and others are not doing wrong things. No, the issue, in fact, if you argue like that, it's as if you are then saying, it's only leaders in Africa that do wrong things. Leaders elsewhere don't do anything wrong, and for which they should be held accountable. So the issue is not that. The issue is if there are leaders who are doing wrong things, meaning, therefore, anywhere in this world, what should happen to them and how does that take place? Now, if you put in place ICC and say it's going to be taking care of leaders, then let's look at it this way, that it will actually take care of leaders across the board, everywhere, isn't it? That's when it becomes international justice. Because we also find some of the things that go wrong in Africa, even if it involves African leaders or Africans, these people always act together or in connivance or in association with leaders or other people elsewhere, isn't it? Or really some of the things that happen have historical background that involve these very people outside of Africa whom the ICC does not look at. So, for us, we are talking about, therefore, if we are talking about ICC and relating it with justice, for us, we are saying, well, then you're not talking about justice, because justice is justice. Everyone who needs justice should get it. It doesn't matter where, if it is there of an international nature like this one. So you can't have an international system that is supposed to dispense justice and it ends up doing it selectively or politically. This is the issue. This is, for us, our position. This is where we come from. And that's really what informed Rwanda's position of not being signatory. And the debates can go on and on and on. But, so we can give our views, but and we may be even we may be strong in our views. They may not have effect, but that's fine. It doesn't take away our right and responsibility to have our views we think that are correct and should apply on matters that affect us.
The next question from RBA, Mr. Aldo Havugimana.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Igihe ikibazo cyanjye kiraganisha kuri ICT mu Rwanda. Tugiye kwakira inama mpuzamahanga ku ikoranabuhanga Transform Africa. Iyi nama iranahura nuko za raporo nyinshi zagiye zitangwa ari uko u Rwanda rwateje imbere ICT cyane cyane mu bijyanye n'ibikorwa remezo n'ibindi. Ariko kandi ubwo duherutse kuba turimo dukora ikiganiro n'abaturage barimo bibaza bati se ko u Rwanda rushyize amafaranga menshi rushyize mu bikorwa byinshi ariko tukabona nanone iri ICT itagera ku baturage ngo irikoreshwe kugezaho byongera umusaruro ku gihugu cyose. None nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, murabona ubu ngubu hagezweho ko hakorwa iki kugira ngo iri koranabuhanga rigira akamaro n'umusaruro urushijeho ku banyagihugu bose?
Ntabwo ikibazo uvuga kirimo impande nyinshi. Ku ruhande rumwe ntabwo numva kiduha ibyangombwa byose bigisobanura. Ku ikoranabuhanga bisa ICT mu Rwanda, ibintu byose ni inzira ugenda inzira. Ntabwo iyo wifuza kujya ahantu uva aho wari uri ngo usimbuke muri ako kanya ngo ubugeze aho ushaka kujya, ugenda inzira. Ni inzira turimo rero. Kuvuga ko ikoranabuhanga ritaragera ku Banyarwanda, ngira ngo birashaka ko umuntu abisobanura neza kurusha. Ntabwo biragera ku Banyarwanda bose, ibyo nibyo uko ni ukuri. Ariko kuvuga ko bitaragera ku Banyarwanda ntabwo ari byo, kuko biri mu nzira. Hari Abanyarwanda actually bimaze kugeraho, even no mu giturage byonyine no kuba babivuga gusa bakavuga bati ICT ntiratugeraho. Ubwo ni ukuvuga ngo barayizi, barayitegereje. Fumi ubwo kuriye iyo ni intambwe rero twateye. Iyo umuntu azi ikintu akaba agitegereje, ubwo wateye intambwe. Izindi zigomba gukurikiraho mu kimugezaho. So nta nubwo wageza ikintu ku Banyarwanda utarabanza gushyiraho. Ikintu kirabanza kikajyaho noneho ukakibagezaho. Ntabwo wakibagezaho kitariho. Ibyo twakoze rero byo imbaraga zishyirwa mu gutuma ibyo by'ikoranabuhanga bibaho ibyo nibyo wese niho igihugu cyashyize ishoramari, byashoye imari muri ibyo ngibyo, byubaka ibyangombwa, bikangurira abantu kumenya icyo ari cyo n'akamaro kabyo, byigisha abantu kugira ngo babitekereze cyane, banabijyemo, banamenye no kubikoresha no kubibyaza umusaruro. Ibyo rero birubakwa, biracyubakwa. None igihe abaturage bagitegereje ko bibageraho ari bose cyangwa ari benshi, niyo nzira rero irimo ikorwa. Twashoye imari mu byangombwa, ibikoresho, dushora imari mu kwigisha abantu, noneho turagenda tubigeza ku baturage kugira ngo uko bibageraho cyangwa uko babyigezaho, kuko ntabwo ari buri kintu cyose gikorwa na leta ngo leta izajya ikibagezaho. Iyo umaze gushyiraho ibyangombwa, n'abikorera batangira kubijyamo, cyangwa se n'abantu ubwabo niyo batabitegereje ngo bibagereho barabigana bakabyigezaho. Nicyo numva kiriho, niko numva nabisobanura.
The next question from AFP, Mrs. Stephanie Aglieti.
Good morning, Mr. President. I have two questions. You were talking about ICC. You explained why Rwanda is not a signatory of ICC. But I was wondering, do you have a solution to propose? Do you think that ICC should disappear or might be just transformed? And another question is related to another subject, but about diplomacy, about the US was been for a long time an ally of Rwanda.
Was what?
The US
was what? It was what? What
has
was
been
it?
for a long time an ally of Rwanda.
Ally, yeah, okay.
Sorry for the pronunciation. Ally of Rwanda.
It still is. It still is.
It's why, okay, and so yes.
Yeah, but let's go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead with your question.
So what do you think about the decision of the US that took about the child soldier issue? And do you think it's a kind of reversal? And how do you explain it? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, on the issue of ICC or possible alternative, if you... Now, first of all, was the creation of ICC really to say this is a panacea, this is something that has come to solve every problem we have about justice? If this is how people approached it, they were dead wrong from the beginning. So, but will there be issues of justice needed nationally, regionally, globally? There will always be, no question about it. There will always be need for justice. Therefore, for us, for Rwanda, the argument is not in defense of ICC or against ICC. Our argument is when there is need for justice anywhere, how will that be dispensed? This is the question. Forget about ICC for a while. Now, therefore, you can look at different formulas or ways of making sure that there is justice. Is it justice that is national? Is it justice that is regional? Is it justice that is international? So how do these relate to each other? You see, sometimes they pick justice issue that is national and elevate it and rush it to some international level. So we have to build capacities to make sure that, and we have to remember that the lack of justice in this particular case is related to many issues. It's not just lack of justice per se. It's because also of lack of many other things. So if you think, therefore, that by dealing with an issue in a country legally, because some of the issues are not legal at all, and ICC tends to give legal solutions. But if you give legal solution to a political problem, you are just messing up. You're just completely messing up things. Things that need a political solution, and you apply matters of law as a technicality, you have a problem. So for you to tell me is the issue, I mean, is there an alternative? Are you suggesting this? You see, the issue is not ICC, something that happens to be there, and then we have to defend it or to be against it. This is again wrong. First of all, ICC, what is ICC? What is it? This is why I was explaining to you from the beginning and bringing in the matter of universal jurisdiction. When we talk about justice in that way, universal jurisdiction, that word universal, what does it mean? It means it applies equally across this world, isn't it? So the issue is not, oh, do we need justice if ICC means that? No, there is a need for justice. But we are saying, how do you apply it? How do you bring justice where it is needed? Do you do it by being selective? Do you do it by politicizing issues? Or making political issues legal? These are the questions. Forget about these three words, letters. Forget about these three letters. ICC, because ICC has become something that people are either in favor or against without even bothering to touch the meaning of it and what it gives people. This simplistic way of dealing with issues is what is creating problems even globally. It's ICC. Are you against ICC or you are for ICC? Even before somebody understands what it means. You say, what is ICC? And they say, no, are you against it or for it? I mean, you can't have a world behaving like this. So really, that's where we come from. Then, on the issue of America and so on, again, I think people make mistakes of jumping to conclusions or to judgment about things all the way. First of all, it starts with people making a mistake of making the judgment on the ground. I mean, let's before we come to the ally issue and so on and so forth, let's come to the actual problem that you have mentioned of child soldiers. You see, even when I look at what has happened, I fail to get it. But I'm looking at that problem per se. You say, you know, in Congo, there is a group, according to you, that recruits child soldiers. That's okay. Does that group deserve to be held accountable for doing that? Or is it doing wrong? Yes. For anybody who recruits child soldiers, I think they are doing wrong. Children don't belong there. Now, I want to say it two ways. In that situation, actually, which we're talking about, all parties responsible for that situation have got involved with playing around with the situation, or they wrong things that are being done in that whole situation, whether it is this side or the other side or any side, are too many. The wrongs they are doing are too many. But now, you become selective and say, no, I'm going for this one, for which I even don't know is the issue. I'm not even sure about the facts. But never mind. This selective nature of doing things is what I have a problem with, first of all. But that's okay. If anybody is doing it, they need to be held accountable. And then what follows is, Rwanda must be, we must point a finger at Rwanda because of the wrong of the other one. Now, but the wrong that is being done, if that is fine, if that is factual, is not the wrong that Rwanda does, because we don't do anything like that. We don't involve children in our military. We haven't done that. Our military is known across the board for its professionalism, for its discipline, and many other things. We don't have that. We don't do that. We don't recruit children in our army. Now, but somebody says, no, I do something to do with you on this issue. First of all, if you can only explain to me the meaning of it, I don't know. But beyond that, they say there are many things we are doing with Rwanda, or we are supporting Rwanda on. This is the only one we are going to hold back on some issues that we relate to Rwanda with. I think what remains is very important as well. So how does the other issue come in? The issue of saying, if it was the other way around, if you look at, say, 5, 6 things we are doing together very well, and one is said no, and also wrongly, because, so how did you see what we are doing together in peacekeeping that remains, and many other things? So I think we are still good friends, but you remember, good friends may have disagreement. It doesn't matter who is right, who is wrong, but overall life has to go on. So I don't think anybody needs to make to create an issue out of this that maybe is not there. But I know people may celebrate it or may may want it to happen that way, but let's not jump to conclusions. Let's wait and see how we move forward. I don't think there's an issue. So I've been seeing this about, but I think people are just jumping to conclusions. As I mentioned the other time, I don't know how long you have been here and how much you have studied our country, but there is something we call the Rwandan spirit. The Rwandan spirit remains intact, and it will take us through all kinds of bad weather. We will go through bad weather and remain alive.
The next question is from East African.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm called Bana, I'm from the East African. My question is related to your recent appointment of the CEO of RDB. I'm wondering, as you made that appointment, what was on your mind? And looking at the achievements this country has made so far in terms of attracting investment, we still have a long way to go. So what would be the focus going forward for you in terms of investment promotion? Thank you.
I normally don't discuss why I did this or that relating to appointments, but I'll make this an exception for you. I'll explain a bit of it. It's nothing other than wanting always to improve on things, tighten up. And, it's actually wanting to continue the good work RDB has been doing and even improve on it. The lady who was appointed the CEO and the minister, again, that was elevated to a ministerial post. I'll probably talk about that also in a moment. Has been working with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, number 2 there. So, and she's been there for a number of years. I would assume, and rightly so, that she has gained a lot of experience, and that is global, that deals with many matters to do with trade and relations of countries, and therefore also by extension understands the flows of investments and the impact on all this. So we wanted to tap into her resourcefulness. And she has finished her tenure at the WTO and so on and so forth. So I found her presence in RDB as something that reinforces the good work that is already taking place in RDB by those who were there and who are still there to do that. That's really how I did it. And this time I also said, RDB, with the important work it does, they really don't have to go through another ministry somewhere else, and they lose out on the conversations that go in the cabinet, in the decision-making process at that level. And then we have to go through a longer route to reach them. So we made the route straight and short, and by making the person in charge a member of cabinet, so that decision making goes straight to feed into what happens in RDB by the presence of the CEO as part of the group of decision makers. That's really it. Yeah.
The next question's from New Times.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is Kennedy Ndahiro. Your Excellency, when the government decided to create an affirmative action for women by reserving 30% in every post, it also reserved 30%, of course, in Parliament.
It does what?
Reserved 30% of the seats. And from the recent results from the Parliament, the ladies have gone even more, 60-something percent. Which shows us a success in that policy, a successful policy in that manner. So, Your Excellency, is there plans maybe to, does the government feel that actually it has achieved what it wanted? That now the women have been given the voice that was lacking, and that maybe it was time to either reduce the 30% of theirs in Parliament, the affirmative action, or remove it altogether, because now the women are on the same level as men, because you can see even the seats that they fought for, removing the ones reserved for them, they took the majority of those seats. So do you think that that program has succeeded and it's time now to kind of gradually pull out of it?
I wouldn't look at gender balance from just what is happening in Parliament. I think what is happening in the Parliament is very impressive, and it is an indication of progress made, absolutely, in our country, in making sure that gender balance is respected and everybody really feels, and we do away with the past where there's progress made. But I would not make a decision or judgment on a single issue like that, because maybe if we went into other details across the board, across the country, we may find the significant representation of women in the Parliament or in a few other places is offset by maybe in other places the lower numbers. So I think it is still work in progress, but very nonetheless very good progress. So I think we need to do quite more and not just not look at a single issue, but rather look at across the board, because that's what balance means. So we may reach a point where, coming back to your question, where we find we are actually making good progress, and this balance is no longer just by affirmative action or have to really make an effort to go into numbers and do. Sometimes it may happen and people take it for granted and it starts flowing on its own. It may develop a life of its own. This would be a very good point at which, we are, as you know very well, we are more or less at a point where we have to be reminded. Sometimes we say, we need the board for this. And people innocently will write, bring you 9 people and only 2 are women or 1. Sometimes they actually bring 9 without a woman. So that means the sensitivity towards that hasn't taken root. It's still being encouraged and pushed and, things like that, which is okay. Again, I'm saying we are making very good progress, absolutely, probably better than any other place you may know. So we should avoid being too mechanical about this. It's like, the numbers here, they have, we have, minus this, plus this. You see, don't you think it is a balance? Why don't we move on? We are talking about people and life. Life is not calculated like that. You don't just 30%, 21 plus 2 here. Life must be internalized. A way of life must be internalized. Must become a way of life. It's not something you keep, reminding, pushing, and doing this, and sorry, I had forgotten, to include a woman. And then that means something is still amiss, you see. So it really takes time, but I think some of the things over time start correcting themselves. Yes, and with encouragement, the balance is created. It becomes a way of life. People internalize it, and then you can say, why do we need to keep now going by these numbers we are enforcing or anything? So we are not yet there, but very, very significant progress.
The next question from TV10.
Thank you. My name is Eugene Anangwe from TV10. My question is on the East African community, and Mr. President, the question is the spirit and the fire of East African integration still burning across all the member states? Because there seems to be lines being drawn and regrouping whereby there are 2 meetings where there was no Pierre Nkurunziza and there was also no Kikwete in Mombasa and in Uganda when you went there to meet with Uhuru and Kaguta. So and also we see the issue of IDs being used as a travel document. Once again, it's Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya. No Burundi, no Tanzania. So we just need to hear from you, probably an assurance that there is still that spirit amongst the 5 leaders of the EAC. Thank you.
Right. I think, I don't know how this mathematical phrase became a way of saying things politically and otherwise. You have heard of something called variable geometry. Variable geometry, it was like saying, ordinarily we are supposed to have 5 countries in the East African community, isn't it? On some issues, some people are behind others in terms of implementation because of maybe where each individual country is coming from. One on a lower base, another on a slightly higher base, and so on. So now, there is a way of saying the best thing is for all of us 5 to move together on everything on the same pace. That's the good start. That's the best starting point if we can do that. But there is another way of saying, you know what? There is a danger that if we wait for everybody to get what they need to get right, we may actually never move forward, isn't it? But let's remain with the same objective of moving forward to a certain point as fast as we can. But why don't those who are ready move on with what they can move on with as we try to wait for or even help others to catch up? You see the point? So the 3 can go together on one. First of all, the 5 have agreed together on, say, on the question of ID. And then maybe one or two saying, but you see, I'm not ready. I think there's a problem here. I have a problem. I know I can't move on. But the others are ready, 4 or 3. And they may say, let's move ahead. There is no contradiction. Let the 3 or 4 move ahead with this thing we have agreed on and wait for the other one to catch up on this, or let's actually, where they need help, let's help them to catch up on this without having to wait, right? You are still working within the same parameters, but instead of moving together as 5, you've moved together as 3. And you have not actually shut out the others who haven't done. No, but you're only saying, let those who can be doing it. So that this may have an effect of putting the other one up to the point where they should be and to the point where we should all be, isn't it? Really, that's what is happening. But people tend to read that, people are left out here, they are left out there. No, I think, in my view, it's a good principle. If we can build a road between here and Kampala that is within, say, the plan of the whole of East Africa, the master plan shows, and then you say, what, for us we have this money to put this road here that is part of the regional project. Do you have to say, no, let's not build this road because the money hasn't been found with the other parts of the road? You see the point? We can go ahead with that, then another one will happen, and so some moving together forward while others are also coming in at is really what is going on, and possibly it has an effect, in my view, of really accelerating the integration process. But let me raise it also differently, or answer it differently. You see, in the East African community, we find, for example, that some of the members of the East African community, of these 5, 1 or 2 may belong to other organizations other than East African community. Should people be assuming that these people are not interested in the East African community because they have gone to the other side? I don't think so. Maybe there is a reason they have paid attention to something else that is not entirely East African, but I don't have to doubt their commitment to what is East African. So many things may happen at the same time, but as long as we keep our main thing intact, which it is, and then allow different variations of many things that happen differently.
The next question from Rushyashya.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Burasa Jean Gorbert kuva muri Rushyashya. Ikibazo cyanjye kiribanda ku mutekano muke uri mu burasirazuba bwa Kongo, aho abantu babona ko gishobora gufata indi ntera. Ngira ngo kugeza amakuru dufite aragaragaza ko hari imyiteguro imwe n'imwe igenda igaragara muri kiriya gihugu, aho tubona ko nk'ibibuga by'indege turavuga nk'icya Kindu gikoreshwa n'ingabo z'Abafaransa, banyura ku kibuga cya Bujumbura bakajya ku kibuga cya Kindu. Kisangane nuko hari imyiteguro y'ingabo za Angola. Ngira ngo minsi ishize abantu babonye RDF izamura ibikoresho bimwe na bimwe bya gisirikare mu majyaruguru y'igihugu cyacu, noneho abantu bakibaza ko
ibintu biri hara hakurya n'amabomba ahora turika bishobora gufata indi ntera ndetse ku buryo byagera no ku ntambara yafataga akarere. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika nta kintu muravuga kuri icyo kibazo, twagira ngo mugire icyo mutubwira. Murakoze.
Hari amakuru umenye ahangaha ntarinzi, wakoze kuduha amakuru nk'ingabo za Angola ziri Kisangani cyangwa abafaransa ibyo bakorera Kindu n'iki, ntabyo narinzi unfortunately. Ariko ibyo nzi ni uko nyine mu Eastern Congo hari ibintu byinshi bihabera bitari byiza byanatugiraho ingaruka, there is no question. Birimo ndetse n'interahamwe birimo ko ziboneramo ingufu mu kavuyo gahari, zifite uko zungukiramo zikisuganya, ndetse ngira ngo murabizi hari na incidents, hari n'ibyagiye biba nk'abantu bateraga amagrenade hano. By the way, I would want to tell you ko abaziteye hafi different times, ibihe bitandukanye kugeza no ku b'ejo bundi, bose tubafite almost. Ngira ngo niba hari nk'ubuze n'umwe out of so many that were involved, we all have them. We have them all in our hands. Turabafite bose ko babikoze. So tuzabaha justice, tuzabaha ubutabera bakwiye. Ibyo ni kukwereka ngo uburyo bwo kurinda igihugu cyacu ntabwo ari buke cyane, ari mu buryo bwo guhangana n'ibi bibazo. N'ibindi ndetse byaba atari ibyo ngibyo mvuze. Icyangombwa wamenya ni uko ntabwo ibibazo byo muri Kongo y'Uburasirazuba ari twe tubitera, ariko bitugiraho ingaruka. Ni ukuvuga rero ngo kubuza ko byaba muri Kongo y'Uburasirazuba ibyo bibazo ntabwo tubifitiye uburenganzira, ntabwo tubifitiye ubushobozi. Ariko ubushobozi bwo kwirinda cyangwa gukumira ingaruka bitugiraho, ngira ngo aho ngaho navuga ko bitari bibi mu buryo twifashe bwo kugira ngo turinde Abanyarwanda. Abanyarwanda ni nayo nshingano yacu, tugomba kubarinda icyahungabanya umutekano wabo dukoresheje ubushobozi bwose dushobora kuba dufite, kandi ndibwira ko buhari. Ibyo kurinda Abanyarwanda rero ibyo ndibwira ko ntabwo twabishidikanyaho, kandi Abanyarwanda ubwabo ntabwo ari ukubarinda gusa nk'abantu bari aho, nabo ubwabo ubundi tugomba gukorana nabo. Bafite imbaraga nyinshi, batera inzego zishinzwe kubarinda nazo zikabatera imbaraga, bagakorana kugira ngo igihugu cyacu cyumve gifite umutekano. Nicyo nakumva mvuga.
Next question from BBC.
Murakoze Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Ikibazo cyanjye nacyo kiri mu karere, uretse ko atari muri Kongo, ndakibaza ngihereye muri Tanzania. Mu minsi yashize habaye ikibazo cy'ubwumvikane buke hagati y'ibihugu byombi, ariko nyuma y'ibiganiro twumvise ko wagiranye na Perezida Kikwete birasa nkaho biri mu nzira gukemuka, ariko ari mwebwe mu bitwibwiriye mwatubwira ko umubano uhagaze gute, ikibazo cyakiro cyararangiye. Ndabashimye.
Nabonanye na Perezida w'icyo gihugu cya Tanzania, twaganiraga dushaka kugira ngo bamwe tumenye ibibazo biriho uko byakumvikana, uko bimwe ntabwo byari bisobanutse. ariko sinavuga ko inama imwe yarangije ibibazo byose, kandi mu buryo bwo gukemura ibibazo byari byinshi bifite intera nyinshi. Hari naho igihugu kimwe kitakemure ibibazo by'ikindi gihugu, niyo ndetse waba ubibonera umuti uvuga uti nyamara bigenze bityo cyangwa byari bikwiye kuba bigenda bitya, rimwe na rimwe hari ubwo utabikora kuko igihugu kindi gifite uburenganzira bwo gukora ibintu bimwe kiba gishatse gukora, niyo byaba bitari mu kuri cyangwa bidafite ubundi ishingiro. Ndibwira rero ko ibibazo byo byarabaye, cyane cyane iby'abantu birukanywe iyo kuva Tanzania, ndetse bitewe n'ababivugaga bakirukanwa mu buryo budahwitse bubafiteho ingaruka bitari ngombwa, ndetse haza kuziramo n'abanyagihugu b'icyo gihugu batari bakwiye kuba ubundi barandurwa mu mago yabo no mu byabo ngo hari ibintu byinshi byabaye sinirwa nshaka kubisubiramo, ndumva ntabwo ari umwanya wanjye wo kujya kubisubiramo. Ariko icyo navuga ni ibindeba ku Rwanda twebwe abirukanywe bitwa ngo ni Abanyarwanda, niyo baba barirukanywe mu buryo butari bwo, barafashwe mu buryo butari bwo, icyambere twebwe ni ukubakira, byanashoboka tukabyereka ababikoze cyangwa aho baturutse, tukavuga ko abantu bitari ngombwa kubagirira nabi uko bimeze cyangwa abagiriwe nabi, tukarekera aho ngaho. Ibindi by'ukuntu ibintu bizakorwa neza ubutaha cyangwa bikwiye kuba bikorwa, nta burenganzira mu kindi gihugu, nta burenganzira tubifitiye, nta n'ubushobozi tubifitiye. Ntabwo twabwira ikindi gihugu ko gikwiriye gufata abantu, baba ab'icyo gihugu cyangwa baba abacu bari muri icyo gihugu, ubushobozi bwacu bwo kugira ngo ibintu bikorwe wenda uko tubona ko ariko bikwiye gukorwa cyangwa n'abandi uko babibona bikwiye gukorwa ni buke, ntabwo ubushobozi buhagije, ariko ntibibuza abantu kubiganira, gukomeza kwerekana ariko ntabwo byari ngombwa kugira gutya, ntabwo ari ngombwa, n'ibyo navuga.
Mr. President, with your permission, we'll take 2 more questions. From Zuarirashe.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Tuyisenge Leonard. Ubushize ni ikibazo kijyanye n'abanyeshuri bajuririye ibyiciro bashizwemo. Ubushize mu banyeshuri 13,298 bajuririye, 10,216 bemerewe guhabwa buruse, ni ukuvuga 81%. Uwo mubare ndi kwibaza impamvu yabarateye ibyo bintu kugira ngo abantu bibeshye ku banyeshuri 10,200 barenga bari bagiye gucikishwa amashuri yabo, nyuma bikagaragara ko bagomba kwisubizwa. Nabazaga impamvu yaba yarabiteye. Ikindi kibazo gishamikiye aho ngaho,
urakwiye kuyimbwira ahubwo wowe ukarimwe mukora iperereza nk'abanyamakuru, warukwiye kuyimbwira.
Ikindi kibazo ni ikijyanye n'abanyeshuri kugeza ubu batibona mu cyiciro icyo ari cyo cyose, bari mu rugo batiga, ntibari mu cyiciro cyo bazishyurira abazahabwa buruse. Nabazaga icyo bateganyirijwe. Murakoze.
Icyo bivuze uku kujonjora kw'abantu kugira ngo, reka mpere kuvuga uko ibintu byari bimeze, yuko byagombaga kuba byarushaho kumera neza kugira ngo bijyane n'ubushobozi igihugu gifite, kandi n'ikoreshwa neza ry'ubwo bushobozi. Hari ibintu byagombaga guhinduka. icyo ni cyo cya mbere. Uburyo bwo kubihindura rero bushobora kuvamo ibibazo nyine biterwa n'abantu, nta nubwo ari ikintu cyoroshye. Abantu bamwe ntibavugisha ukuri, cyangwa n'ababikora ubwabo hari ubwo babikora mu buryo butari bwo. Abantu amakosa ashobora kuvuka impande zose ziri mu rubuto. Niyo mpamvu rimwe wabona uyu mubare n'uyu basubiramo ukabona uwundi, ndetse n'ubu bikaba bitararangira. Ni inzira yo gukemura ikibazo ibyo ari byo byose. Ariko twahereye ko ikidashidikanywaho giye kuri uko nkibona nuko hari impamvu yo kugira ngo ibintu bihinduke bive uko byari bimeze. Kuko uko ibintu byari bimeze, aho umuntu wese ari ikintu kiraho cyasamye gusa buri wese yinjiramo, n'ufite ubushobozi n'utabufite bikavanga. Twagira ngo tuvuge ngo ariko hariho abantu bamwe bafite ubushobozi, nta mpamvu bakwiye gutwara umwanya w'abadafite ubushobozi. Gufashwa kwa biriya ari ukuvuga gusa ngo ni uburenganzira bwanjye ngomba kujyamo. Hariho tukavuga ngo ya uburenganzira ahangaha bufite uko busumbana, kuko byagenda neza dushyize imbere ikigendererwa. Nicyo cyangombwa. Rero ko abantu byakozwe nabi birerekanwa n'icyo n'uwo mubare uriho uvuga ngo hariho abantu bari barasigaye, baza gusangaho ko bakwiriye kuvuga ngo hari ahantu abantu bibeshye cyangwa babeshye. Say the way. Abatangaga information bamwe barabeshye, abandi bagendera kuri information, kuri makuru kugira ngo bashobore kugira ibyo bakora, baribeshye cyangwa bakoze andi mafuti ntazi. Ariko ubwo hariho inzira yo kubigorora, ubwayo nabanza nkayishimira, kuvuga ngo hari abantu bari bageranye kuko noneho ubu biragenda bishyirwa mu buryo, ndumva ari byiza. Ikindi cy'uko hari abicaye mu mago, abo nabo bakwiye ntabwo numva impamvu bicara mu mago. Bicara mu mago ababishinzwe ubwo bakwiye kubikurikirana bakareba niba baribeshye, bakabashyira nabo mu kategori itariyo, ku buryo batabona imfashanyo noneho bakajya mu gihirahiro. Ibyo nabyo bikwiye gukosorwa. Ibyo ndibwira ko Minister Education hari icyo wabisobanuraho.
Murakoze Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Ubundi ntabwo hari abana bagombye kuba bicaye mu mago nk'uko babivuga, kuko hagati mu kwezi kwa 9 twatanze amabwiriza ko babandika bose bakaba batangira kwiga mu gihe bagikurikirana n'ibibazo byabo bigakomeza bigasuzumwa, ariko bakaba bari ku mashuri. N'uyu munsi dufite abarenze 1000 ho gatoya tukisuzuma ibibazo byabo, ariko twe tuzi ko bagombye kuba bari ku mashuri.
ariko mu bibazo twagiye tubona kuko hari abagiye bavuga ngo ntabwo banamenye ko habayeho ubujurire, ngo ntabwo bigeze babimenya. Birashoboka ko hari bakiri mu mago koko bakiri iwabo, ariko twahaye amabwiriza amashuri makuru yose ko bakorohereza abana bakabandika niyo baba bagifite ibyo bakurikirana mu bijyanye n'icyo bagomba kwishyura cyangwa se bagomba gufashwa kwiga. Ubwo rero byaba bishingiye hari ku bujiji, ariko rero ayo mabwiriza yaratanzwe hagati mu kwezi kwa 9 kandi amashuri makuru yose yaramenyekanishijwe, biri no kuri website z'ayo mashuri makuru yose, bitangarizwa rimwe mu mashuri makuru yose.
So abashinzwe amakuru ndabona batabizi, ubwo sinzi aho bayashakira, cyangwa iyo n'abanyamakuru aribo batazi biri mu makuru, ubwo haba hari ikibazo.
The last question from Contact FM.
Let's have. Where are you from? You had asked a question.
I'm the one who had asked.
You are the one.
Yes.
So, and you haven't had your turn yet. Yeah, let's have. Yes, I'm here for that. So.
Okay. Start with Kigali today.
Yitwa Leon Zabandora. Kigali today. Ikibazo nabazaga ni mu minsi mike yishize hari Minisitiri w'Ububanyi n'Amahanga wungirije w'Uburusiya uherutse kugera inaha, murabona na mu audience. Nkuko mwahoze muvuga kare ko abantu ba jumping bakibuta ku ma conclusion hamwe namwe wenda atariyo. Ibyo byahuriranye wenda nuko hari ibyo bavugaga barega u Rwanda, even na US ivuga ko yahagaritse bimwe mu nkunga yaduhaga kubera ibi by'abana mwavuzeho kare. Nkuko speculation zikunda kuba mu bantu, baravuze ati abarusiya baraje. So ni bisanzwe twagira ngo
abone ntibakwiye kuza.
Bakwiye kuza kimwe n'abandi bose, ariko no kugira ngo nkuko mwabonanye n'uwo muyobozi w'Abarusiya, mutubwire ikintu wenda Abarusiya baba baje gukora muri no minsi cyashya ko twari tuzi, ntabwo twari tumaze
basanzwe baza. Icyo kibazo kiroroshye cyo nta nubwo ari ahabaje gusa. Waje hano yaramaze iminsi agenda mu karere, bari bavuye za Gabon, za Equatorial Guinea, kandi dufite na ahubwo yo nambaza ejo bundi, ntabwo ari kera, ambasaderi wabo mushya twaramwakiriye. Byaragutangaje kubona bafite ambasade hano, cyangwa haza ambasada mushya. Ejo bundi twakiriye na ambasada wabo mushya, bafite na ambasada hano, natwe twashyize ambasaderi ubu ngubu. So kuza hano kwa uyu minister yaravuye no mu bindi bihugu, ikindi gishise yarari muri Uganda, yarari Gabon, yarari yagenze no muri, yaravuye no muri Southern Africa. Nukomeza umubano wabo basanzwe bafite mu bihugu, ariko ngira ngo bari bafite n'ibindi bari bakurikiye. Hari ibintu barimo bafiteyo competition n'ibindi bihugu, ibintu bya expo something ba competing to host, kugira za expo. Ngira ngo bari hamwe, bari ibintu bahatanira na Turkey na Dubai na so bashakaga amajwi n'ibintu bisanzwe rwose abantu bose bakora. Ubwo na mbere hari abantu bo muri Turkey baje hano babikurikiranye, aba Dubai baje hano babikurikiranye. So ni ibintu ariko usibye noneho n'umubano usanzwe w'ibihugu ku nzego zindi zisanzwe, nta gitangaza.
Next from RBA.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Ni Mukaneza Angelique muri Rwanda Broadcasting Agency. hari gahunda nziza yatangijwe n'urubyiruko ya Ndi Umunyarwanda, ndetse mu mpera z'icyumweru gishize abayobozi bakuru bakaba baragiye mu mwiherero aho baganiriye kuri iyi gahunda, ndetse hakaba haragaragajwe ko byaba byiza buri muntu cyangwa se buri munyarwanda agize ikiswe kwikanda. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nagira ngo mbabaze, ubundi intera y'ubumwe n'ubwiyunge ngira ngo yarigeze kure, ese kuba iyi gahunda isa nk'igarutse nuko musanga gukandana bitarahagije cyangwa se hakirimo ikibazo bisaba ko buri munyarwanda noneho yakwikanda? Murakoze.
Kwikanda ni language ikene bivuze ikene,
ni ijambo ryakoreshejwe muri uyu mwiherero, ariko biganisha ku kuvuga ko buri muntu yakwireba aho abona hari ikibazo we wenyine akagerageza kugikemura. Muri
ibyo birasobanutse kurusha kwikanda. Ariko ikindi gisobanutse ni uko wanabyise uko byitwa Ndi Umunyarwanda, ngira ngo icyo nicyo kiri imbere. Ni ukuvuga ngo gushyira ubunyarwanda imbere y'ibindi byose, mbere y'uko uturuka aha n'aha, mbere y'uko ufite idini n'iri, mbere y'uko ufite icyo wakwita icyo ari cyo cyose. Bimwe badushyizemo natwe tukaburiramo by'amoko, mbere y'uko hari ikintu cyitwa u Rwanda, ubunyarwanda, kuba umunyarwanda. Ngira ngo nicyo Ndi Umunyarwanda. Icyo bivuze ni ngo Ndi Umunyarwanda mbere y'ibindi nshaka kuba. Nabyo icyo bikorera icyo numva biganishaho ni uguha umwanya w'igihugu kikagira umwimerere wacyo, kikabera n'abagituye ba nyiracyo kurusha ibindi batandukanye. N'ibyo abantu batandukanyeho bakabikoresha kuzuzanya ku neza y'igihugu kurusha kugihemukira nk'abagihemukiye bandi tuzi. Iryo jambo bakoresheje kwikanda kuvamo ibiganiro, nka debate, ndetse no kwisuzuma. Iyo nzira ntabwo igira irangiraga. Ntabwo njye numva ko hari umunsi ibibazo by'u Rwanda byateye u Rwanda kubaho uko rwabaye. Urebye muri 1994, aya mateka ni maremare cyane, arimo ibintu byinshi. Kuvuga rero ngo abantu n'uyu munsi bashobora kuganira bakomeza kubaka umunyarwanda, umuco nyarwanda, kamere nyarwanda, igihugu. Njye sinarinzi ko hari aho byageze ngo tumaze kuvuga ibihagije, tumaze gukora ibihagije, reka turekera. Ni ibintu bikomeza nk'ibindi byose twubaka bigikomeza. Uwo mwanya rero, uwo mwiherero, kuko ibi bintu byose muri aya mateka, nko mu bindi byinshi dukora, tudavugishije ukuri ku bintu ko byabaye cyangwa uko biteye, cyangwa ngo abe ariko dushingiraho tugana ku cyo twifuza kugeraho, ari uko u Rwanda rukwiriye kumera cyangwa uko umunyarwanda akwiye kumera. Nyine uguma ufite ibintu bijagajega bidafite umusingi ukomeye. Niyo mpamvu ariko se ubundi ikibazo cy'abantu kwicara bakavugisha ukuri, bakabwirana ukuri, kirihe. Icyo umuntu ushaka kubika ku mutima, udashaka ko abantu bavuga, nawe udashaka kuvuga, ni iki kimaze iki? Urakibika ngo hanyuma amaherezo azaba yayo. amaherezo ahubwo ko imwe na rimwe anaje atamerera neza umuryango nyarwanda twubaka cyangwa atamerera neza n'uwagiheranye urahuki impamvu umuntu atakivuga akagishyira hanze bakakiganira yaba yumva ari ko kuri kwe akagerageza gutanga impamvu ubona ko atari ko kuri akamubwira nawe ize hanyuma bakagera ku mwanzuro ku cyo bageraho gituma batera imbere ntabwo numva impamvu iyo yaba ari naho ibyo kwikanda no gukandana n'iki bishobora kuvugika nabi bikabiha negative connotation gukanda ni ukuganira ni ukubwizanya ukuri ni ukubwizanya ukuri ko kuba umunyarwanda kuba n'umunyarwanda dukwiriye kuba cyangwa dushaka kuba umuntu ndetse rimwe akabwirwa ibyo adashaka kumva undi akavuga ibyo abandi badashaka kumva ariko abihera ko yumva ariko kuri kwe ariko ashaka kugira ngo yumve nuko abandi bareba ukuri bahuriraho ari byo bituma dutera intambwe imbere itera ntabwo rero nibwira ko ibyo bigira ibyo byo bivuga gutyo kubishyira hanze bivura igihugu ubukomere cyagize kurusha kubigundira buri wese akabigumana akaguma bikoreraho cyangwa akabihisha ku maso agashyiraho iyindi sura mu mutima akaguma afite isura yindi isa ukundi nuko tukagenda tubeshyana dutyo mu nzira njye niko numva mbibona.
The last question from Contact FM.
Mr. President,
there is somebody else who had another question.
I'd already asked, but we can give her a second one. Yeah.
If she is insisting, we may give her. No. This time, the other way around.
From Contact FM, Rudat Simburga Albert. Mr. President.
You tried to be a gentleman, though. That's.
I thought I was. July, August, Rwanda has been a victim of several shellings coming from Congo to the point that everybody thought that Rwanda was ready to claim justice for themselves by crossing over eventually. And you were visited by the UN, and I guess many more calls from other parts of the world. This morning it started again, a never-ending story. There are again problems at the other side. People are fighting. What did people tell you in August that stopped you from going yourself for people aggressing Rwanda? And what insurance did you get from there? And what do you think is going to be now the way forward again?
But I would say it differently. There is nothing that stopped me. There is something that stopped those who were attacking us. This is the way I would do it. I would say it. But I think we shouldn't dramatize the issue. Problems that are there across the border, that how they affect us and that affect us, are there, have been there for many years now. But I think the most important thing is for everyone to keep focused on how we can end this, because it's not only Rwanda at the receiving end on this one. Just think of the ordinary people also, ordinary citizens, even of Congo, where these things are taking place. For how long should they continue to suffer under this, irrespective of who is right or who is wrong? You see, these ordinary people cannot be really put on the side of wrong. I think they are just at the receiving end. And people need to think about it, and therefore we need to think about ending this violence and fighting that is going on in Eastern Congo, and fortunately, or at least in one aspect, that the rest of the world is focused, is interested in how this can end, is one thing. At least let me talk about the good side, how they become part of the problem, and how it actually they become part of why it continues to be there is a long debate and another issue for another time. Let me also focus on probably how maybe my thinking and the need for the fighting, the suffering and the confusion there, how that should end. That's the most important thing. So for Rwanda, what we did was to say, I think enough is enough. It's not more so much about going to do anything. It was more about saying we've been having bombs landing on our side and killing and affecting our people. It has to stop. It needed to stop. Fortunately, it stopped. So I think that is the most important thing. We can't go into, if it hadn't stopped, this would have happened, and as if we are really looking for it to happen. That's not the issue. We don't need that at all. Even for what it may serve as a distraction or to affect the process of bringing that to an end. But today there are efforts, some regional and others beyond the region to other international levels of trying to, calm down the situation and probably find a solution, so that fighting of any kind doesn't continue and allows for other things to happen. That's what we are involved in, all of us, and that's what Rwanda is contributing to. And I think fighting needs to end. And I think we've discussed it for a long time. And it's on that basis that there are these efforts to end the fighting. So I think that is enough. But I don't think Rwanda has been a victim. We don't like being a victim. We can be at a receiving end for something, but we don't feel a victim. We always want to stand up to our challenges, and the word victim should not apply to us much as the reality might be, but the thinking should be different. That we are not a victim, that we can stand up to these challenges and stop feeling like we are a victim. Yes, so go ahead and let's make it final.
Thank you, Mr. President. So double question again. Is the DRC recently asked for an answer from Rwanda about... Asked Rwanda for an answer about 200 families who came on the M23 zone.
What?
About 200 families.
Yes.
Who came in the M23 zone. And DRC said, they said that they come from Rwanda, and DRC accused Rwanda of sending them to reinforce. I don't have the exact quote. So I just wanted a reaction from you
Let me get it right. What was the DRC accused?
Ask Rwanda for an answer to explain how that family came from Rwanda.
There are families that came from Rwanda.
Yeah.
That went to
M23 zone, like 3 weeks
to
ago.
what? To M23 zone, right?
Yes. Some of them said that they are Congolese refugees.
Yes.
The government said they are Rwandan, fired from Tanzania. So
others came from Tanzania. Huh? No, this is what I'm saying. I want to pick it. What others are said to have come from Tanzania, as by the allegation.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
And ask Rwanda for an answer.
Yeah.
And perhaps just the other question, which is, I think, important. You were talking about Interamwe. Rwanda accused FRDC and even Intervention Brigade to collaborate with FDLR. Do you still think that? Do the UN security, when it came to Rwanda, talk about FDLR and, for example, promise to fight? And do you think to promise to help to be rid of FDLR?
Who?
The UN Security Council who came.
Did they promise to end the problem of FDLR?
And do you think that MONUSCO can fight against FDLR if you are convinced that they are actually collaborate with them? Thank you.
So about this group of people or families who went to which zone and so on, I have no idea myself. I don't know it, and I don't think probably many people in the government know about that. But the best way to do it should not, to know the truth, should not be just Rwanda being accused or RC accusing Rwanda or vice versa of anything. I think there are people who are supposed to be responsible for that. Whether it is UNHCR working together with Rwanda and DRC to find out the truth of that matter and also how it happened. Because let me work from the worst case scenario. And please, at least you journalists, sometimes you need to be honest and even keep faith with your profession. Sometimes somebody says something and if there was not, then you eliminate not and it becomes a fact. It is as if I have said this is so. Mark my words, please, and don't misrepresent me. Let me work from the worst case scenario, that some people crossed the border and went there, and that is not enough to implicate Rwanda. We have to find out whether whatever happened actually happened with connivance of government or anybody in the government, which would therefore implicate Rwanda. Say Rwanda is sending people like this. But for example, like we have neighboring countries. Let me use this example. We have had Kenya and Uganda. Between Kenya and Uganda, these nomads, sometimes they cross, they come to Uganda. Some Ugandan nomads cross and go into Kenya. You know, these two countries have tried to fight this, I don't know how many years now, and they have failed. You know, the Karamajong, the Turkana, the Kanas, you from Kenya, I think you know this story very well.
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yes. The Pokot.
The Pokot. Yeah. Yes, and so the two governments have tried to fight it, but they have failed up to this day for many years, because people just move. If they feel this is their place, or and I think some aspects of this, even actually relating to these other previous accusations that have been leveled against us. Some of the things have happened out of relationships, out of friendship, that we don't know how people may cross on the other side or the other side. Well, it's like sometimes we find, do you know of the recent case where even some DRC soldiers were arrested on our side? They crossed in uniform with the guns, and they were in the market on our side. And they were arrested. And this fellow said, no, I didn't know I was in Rwanda. This is a soldier in uniform carrying a gun. He tells you he doesn't even know. I mean, and in fact, I could not even jump to conclusion that the government was actually involved, of DRC involved in sending a soldier across the border to the market on the Rwandan side. But the ease with which people have concluded that whoever has talked to who from Rwandan side, DRC side, or DRC side, on Rwandan side, that this must be something sanctioned by governments. People need to be careful. So about these people who are said to be in those areas, I don't know. I have no idea. Now, even the people who came from Tanzania, there are many people who are actually called Rwandans, who were thrown out of Tanzania in this operation, who actually did not come to Rwanda but went to Uganda. You see that? So I don't know whether Uganda should be saying, these Rwandans are sending their people here. No, they know the story. They know these are people being sent away from Tanzania, and people, instead of going to Rwanda, maybe they have cows, and they say, oh, Rwanda is very small, it doesn't have area for pasture for my cows, so Uganda is bigger and there is probably more pasture, so I can take advantage and go and disappear in some wild, and they do that. But for somebody then to say Rwanda, you see, Rwanda is sending or is signaling Rwandans that instead of coming to Rwanda, they should go through go to Uganda. I think it is the highest level of dishonesty. Yes. Actually, they may even go through Uganda and continue and end up in DRC. So if they are, instead of actually accusing Rwanda, maybe you need to accuse Tanzania. You see, because what is the place of origin? The place of origin is Tanzania. They have been chased from Tanzania. So if they end up in DRC or in Uganda, does somebody accuse Rwanda for that? I don't understand the logic. It doesn't, for me, make sense. But I don't know what the facts are about whether actually these people are there, or if they are there, how they got there. You should be taking some risk. You go there and interview these people, you journalists, instead of putting me to task to explain some of these things that have. Since you're interested in information and not rumors, you need to go there. Why don't you go and find out? Actually, if you had come telling me, say, you know what, President, we found people there and they are saying they were sent by governors, and it is a government plot to do that. Maybe I would. But you see, I don't know whether to say I would believe you, because there are many things that you people have said that I don't want to believe, that you play so much politics in your reporting that. Let me explain my case. Recently, have you come to know of, there is a case, somebody who was in Uganda, who claimed how that the government of Rwanda was trying to send them to DRC to join M23 and all kinds of stuff. He was on BBC saying so many, making so many allegations. Do you know this kind of thing? Now this person is back here. I think they must have promised him something and they didn't give it to him, and he found that maybe they had told him they would send him abroad, and later on I think there was no passport or visa, and so he came back. And the story this person is telling is very revealing. He shows the connivance of these human rights groups, UNHCR, how they take them, how they coach them. This fellow was first coached what to say on BBC, right? And the connection with these groups, these Vigarashas and FDLR, and how they were all, and working with Human Rights Watch, UNHCR people, and how you packaging a story, a narrative that does not exist, and creating it, and in the end, maybe, I don't know why you people, they haven't given you this person you talk to and listen to his story. Now, but out there, and we are put in a certain position that you can't even explain, because now it has been said by BBC, it has been said by Human Rights Watch, it has been said by UNHCR, so it is right. Now, at the end of the day, the person, the key player here, the characters, tells you the story. See, these fellows have been, and gives evidence of all that. Gives names, gives everything, and shows documents and how. Now, these plots that have been going on like this in this region and affecting Rwanda are just astonishing. You can't believe it. So, AFP try and find out, help us also know the truth. I honestly don't know what is there, these people being talked about. It has become like the game of something called Walinga. Walinga, you have ever heard of it? I think it is Kiswahili. Walinga, something they tell people that it has passed here. They would even used to tell children that if you don't go to sleep, this thing will come and... Do you know that? It's some monster created in the minds of people for a certain effect. They say, if you don't go, you children, if you don't go to sleep, something will come and swallow you, And the children start believing this thing exists. And they rush to go and sleep, and they close their eyes, and so that if it comes, it will also actually see them, but see them that they are asleep. So and leave them alone, even when they are still awake. They are just frozen and closing their eyes. So some of these things are just created like that. Yes. So it's amazing what Rwanda has experienced of this kind. So the Interahamwe thing and so on. This is a long story, but yes, we raise it with there are many falsehoods like that, or wrong things that are being done. You see, all along, if you can help me understand this, all along actually this UN force in the Congo was that's the origin. If you trace back the origin of even how it came to Congo, it was actually to fight these genociders, FDLR, and other negative groups for the stability of Congo. This is, if you read the history, this is written somewhere this was the mission. But for all the years they have been there, you also know, since you follow the story even as a journalist, whether and when that happened, if it did, over the years. But instead, you should know also how this FDLR has been there causing even havoc. You know, I'm surprised. When I read the news, I read it. FDLR has caused havoc even to the Congolese. The raping that has gone on over for a decade, pillaging, the killings, you know, taking over territory and taking over even mines. And now, in between, whether with or without collaboration of anybody, I don't want him to enter into this territory for now. And the others they have worked with, the history we have known for the last so many decades of people, even in institutions supposed to protect people, raping people, killing them, doing what? All of a sudden, that is put aside, as if it never happens. They got something called 23, something called, or so-called M23, is the monster that is responsible for all crimes in Congo. The rest has disappeared. Actually, it has never happened, you know. So something that was created and put there, even with ignoring its history, is now the thing. The thing that does every crime or has done every crime in Congo, even before it existed. You see, it has taken over. So this is where now FDLR, you would think FDLR has resurfaced recently on our insistence. You keep talking. Otherwise, these people, even those for whom their presence was just about that, it's as if they have forgotten this thing called FDLR. Until recently, when we started continuing talking about it, they even started, you know, looking for excuses. It's like, you know, but this FDLR, you know, these are no longer the old genociders. These are young people. These are their children. As if that is impressive. Meaning, for example, if you have, let's say, the Nazi, as of old, it's an old thing. If you had a young person who was born 20 years ago and says, you know what, I want to belong to this group called the Nazi, meaning you are identifying yourself with what that name stands for, are you really just young and therefore innocent? I don't understand the logic. Because the name is old, but it represents something. You see, the word Nazi represents something. If you are born 50 years later and you say, no, I belong to this thing, are you okay? Is this fine? So then the argument was, you know, FDLR, you see, these are young people, but the FDLR stands for something we know. It's of old, these old genociders. So if there are young ones with genocide ideology, I don't think they are fine. I don't call it fine. I don't think it's okay. So now, whether there are some collaborations crisscrossing with these people who are supposed to deal with the problem, for me, I even read it in a big picture from my end. I said, people haven't even done what they were supposed to do, actually. They haven't fought this group they were supposed to be fighting. They've paid on one hand lip service, then on the other they have tried even to cleanse them of this genocide ideology and background. But it goes beyond this region, Madam, as you may know. You know, there are this Rwandan genocide has many hands in it that go beyond the continent. You know, and the war has always been, the struggle has always been for some people to say, no, this is something African. No, it is not something African. These people are actually responsible from outside. Other than Rwandans, we have other people who want to protect themselves by putting guilt somewhere else, guilt somewhere else. So we did discuss these issues with the UN Security Council. We gave them our thinking on the overall picture and showing them how some of the things that are not right, are not correct, have been done by those who were actually supposed to be here trying to help deal with the problem, how they turned and became part of the problem. We did discuss that in whatever level of honesty we could put it to. Arthur, you want to close that? You're not happy the lady could close it?
But, Your Excellency, thank you so much. I just wanted to make one comment on the revelation you've told us about the BBC story and the so-called the fellows who had gone to Uganda and were saying they were being used. You know what is so bizarre is the way that story was done. I think the BBC reporter who did it would have won an award for doing the most being the most investigative story had done.
And probably the most daring also.
And the most daring, because in the presentation it looked like, you know, he had gone an extra mile and investigated and got it to get people who are being recruited and presented it like it's very original. And, you know, now getting to know these people, a bunch of people that were coached and were told what to say. It just becomes a humiliation to the kind of reporting. And I'm really hopeful that such outlets are able to, you know, take the humility and say we retract such fabricated materials, because it's really bizarre. The way the story was told and how it was presented, you'd think it's something that is original, well investigated, and yet it's just you know, conniving between those rights groups and we in the media. So I just want to make a comment on that to see how it is really
Sure.
a terrible thing.
But you should also bear in mind that probably there is a need for divine intervention for some of these big houses and people, like whether BBC or big institutions, the world knows, to really do things even basically in a very professional way. It needs, but this is what Rwanda has become affected by for many years, and we continue to see it. But I imagine it is not Rwanda. Many others suffer from these untruths that characterize people who, you know, and at the end of the day, Rwanda is at the receiving end of being accused of, you know, being anti-human rights, anti-journalism, we are anti-everything. Really, if you see how we are treated by the same people who tell lies from morning to the evening of every day, and tell truth when they want and tell lies when they want, and it's a way of life. Okay, but again, we shouldn't complain. We just need to live our lives and live them the best way we can. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's just a brief intervention. Maybe to take Arthur's point further, perhaps what Arthur is calling for is local media to actually also be ready to go to the trenches, and in doing so, well, try to counter the kind of negative stories that are coming out of there. I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, but the problem is the weakness of local media. The weaknesses are also end up becoming accusations against us. It's like we are really not interested in development of the local media. It's like because we are anti-media, we are anti-journalists, but again, you see, if you look at the accusations, it's as if we are anti only the local media, because the international, the others from outside, thrive here. You know, yes, they are here. We haven't, you know, but it's as if it ends up being we are against the Rwandans or local media developing here. But for the outsiders, they have, there is, by the way, it's very interesting. There is one journalist I used to see here, whom I heard, I don't know when he went to the US or something, was arrested. There's one big man I used to see here. Eh?
Steve Terrell.
What is that?
Steve Terrell.
Uh-huh. Is that true, what I read, that he was arrested for something?
He went back to the US and he was arrested at the airport on outstanding drug charges, crack cocaine.
Uh-huh. So he's in prison now?
No, I think he's finished his case. We actually met him in New York. He came to one of your events. So he's out already.
Oh,
but he had to go through some sort of legal process, and I don't know if he got.
But of course, this is a journalist here. If we were, by the way, if we found he was doing that, we were not supposed to touch him, because he's a journalist. If we found, if this guy, what he was arrested for in the United States was being done here, and the police or others caught up with him, you're not supposed to touch him, because if you touch him, you're touching a journalist. Yes. That's not, and it ends up being, you know, he's being handled like that because he one day asked Kagame a question that he did not like. That becomes, the crime changes into that. You see, this is the circus of the world we live in. Yeah? Anyway, let's go have our lunch. Thank you very much.